You guys. Disney's new live-action remake of Snow White debuted this weekend, and it's an even bigger dud than anticipated.
People are struggling.
Now, for Disney, as you probably remember, all of this publicity, the Zegler interviews, the Daily Mail leak, caused a lot of unexpected, for them anyway, pre-production problems. People weren't supposed to see and understand just how unwatchable the new Snow White was going to be. It was supposed to be, kind of a surprise, but now there was no hiding it.
They probably thought you were playing Snow White.
Exactly. So I'm kind of curious. They didn't see it yet.
Okay.
And I think once they're going to watch the film, I'm going to look at them like this.
But these guys at Disney, they're not that bright, they're not that smart, and we see that because they can't come up with any new IP. Why not write some new movies? You guys sit around, you have billions of dollars. They keep going back and rewriting the classic.
The reason we had Rachel Zegler on the docket is she's an asshole. This is truly, like, she has to go. I'm sorry, Disney. She has to go.
But I think the movie bombed because it's bad. Those CGI little people.
Because Rachel Zegler is a PR nightmare.
Now, one thing that is already universally known at this point by the general public is the fact that Disney is in full-on damage control mode. Now, one thing about Rachel Zegler is that we know that she's not helping at all one bit.
Disney is having its own problems. They're finally releasing the latest adaptation of Snow White, but they're scaling back the Hollywood premiere of the film. Kinsey, why is that?
I came back, the losses were around $4 billion a year.
Well, I know this point has been made, but this truly is the worst casting maybe in the history of the film industry. Has there been a film with worse casting than this? And I don't just mean the Snow White actress. Obviously, she's terrible, but both of them.
Controversy has swirled around Gal Gadot's new movie, also starring Rachel Zegler as Snow White. A lot of people don't like her. A lot of people don't like her either. She's got a big mouth. She talked trash about the original movie.
Hello, Disney. You're going to have to redo your film again because this woman is a pig and you fired Gina Carano for far less than this nonsense. I think it's fair to say that no one can stand the star of this movie.
One of the reasons why Rachel Zegler sticks around is she's got a beautiful voice and she has some talent. So I think that certainly helps her because she's a PR nightmare. I don't know how anyone would hire her. Given all the behind-the-scenes mayhem, I expected a Frankenstein's monster where scenes to be stitched together. I think a lot of these live-action updates are really hard to watch. They've really done so much stepping on rakes over the last few months with this project where the box office is just not going to recover.
Neither of them make any sense for their roles. We've already covered how Rachel Zegler is a terrible choice for Snow White. Nothing about her says Snow White, and that's even leaving aside the fact that she openly detests the story, as she's said many times during this disastrous PR campaign. But Gal Gadot, who plays the Queen, the first problem is that she's the evil queen. The evil queen is supposed to be envious of Snow White's beauty, and that is just not believable. It is just not, even in a movie with magical mirrors and dwarves and all that, in a fairy tale, that strains my ability to suspend disbelief. I cannot buy that Gal Gadot is angry that she's not as beautiful as Rachel Zegler. I cannot buy that.
This is someone who is as entitled as, I don't need your business. You know what? Maybe Disney does. Maybe you're a tool, you're a pawn in this film. You didn't write it, you didn't direct it. You have nothing to do with the creation of Snow White. Right. You should shut up and do the job.
From the moment Disney revealed its live-action Snow White adaptation, it bore both the promise of a significant triumph and the threat of serious backlash. For years, Disney had depended on its renowned animated library to spark new film projects, fueled by audience nostalgia and a modern twist on storytelling.
Did the dwarfs make it or no?
Well, the CGI dwarfs did. Of course, that goes back to the original controversy where Peter Dinklage, a very talented little person actor, said, "Why are we doing that?"
However, as soon as production details emerged, many fans and observers had a feeling that something wasn't quite right. They noted sweeping deviations from what had made the original Snow White such a beloved classic, and they worried that a hasty effort to update the story for contemporary sensibilities might generate more controversy than excitement. By the time the movie actually premiered, these concerns appeared justified. The box office numbers came in disappointingly low, and critics, both traditional and online, were withering in their assessment of the final product. Disney CEO Bob Iger, returning to the company after a prior retirement, faced a string of challenges by the time Snow White rolled out.
Every time she opens her mouth, it's crisis mode when it comes to Disney, having to backtrack. She talks about how this isn't a fairy tale about falling in love with the prince. This is a fairy tale about fighting your own battle.
Attendance figures for Disney's theme parks were not as robust as in years past. Certain streaming initiatives were losing money, and critics were becoming increasingly vocal about the studio's creative decisions.
And to everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her.
Oh my God.
And I can only hope.
What does that mean?
That despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
This new film landed in the middle of all that turbulence. With well-known stars Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot headlining, Disney likely hoped to revive the magic of the 1937 classic in a way that would resonate with younger viewers while still honoring the spirit of the original.
I know that you've told me before that your version of Snow White is different, and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
Instead, the release was rapidly characterized as a box office disaster, an ignoble fate for a property that had traditionally symbolized Disney's earliest and most enduring successes in animation.
Now you have Rachel Zegler saying, oh, that 1937 movie, that's just, it's tacky, it's weird, we're going to change all that.
Much of the controversy surrounding Snow White took the form of sharp critiques about how it handled essential plot and character elements.
She's not like the ideal choice for the lead role in Sweet Snow White.
While some audiences understand and even encourage creative reinterpretations, many felt that this adaptation moved too far away from the core identity of the fairy tale. The dwarfs, the princess's characterization, and even the landscape of the story were all subjected to changes that left diehard fans confused or outright angry.
There's a big focus on her love story. With a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
Beyond those changes, the film simply did not impress from a technical standpoint, with critics pointing to unremarkable direction, lukewarm cinematography, and a sense that the entire production was unsure of its own tone and message. At the center of the storm was Rachel Zegler. She had already garnered attention through previous high-profile roles, yet Snow White placed her under a spotlight she might not have experienced before. The magnitude of the backlash seemed to catch everyone off guard, prompting a cascade of consequences for Zegler's career. Multiple insiders alleged that Disney cut her out of future roles, including a voice part in the next Toy Story 5, where she had been codenamed Spiral.
It's just a total nightmare for the studios. So now she's trying to sell I love Snow White. I love everything about the whole story. Here she is more recently trying to change the messaging. This is actually Wednesday.
Thank you so much for being here. And to see this is really emotional for me, so I'm going to try to not do that. I love her, and her superpower is her heart. It's nothing supernatural. It's something that all of us have. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy Snow White. Thank you, guys.
I'm sorry. That was acting. That's what that was.
There were also rumors that she was initially brought aboard a reboot of Pirates of the Caribbean, only to be let go before the project could fully materialize. Despite the prospect of that reboot looking questionable from the start, Zegler's abrupt exit triggered headlines and online speculation about whether the entire film might be abandoned or reworked yet again. Throughout this tumult, Zegler's own statements compounded the negative publicity. During the actors' strike, she expressed her belief that cast members deserved compensation every time a viewer clicked on the film once it landed on Disney+. This suggestion was met with widespread derision and accusations of entitlement, particularly as standard Hollywood practice has never involved pay-per-click residuals to that extreme a degree. While many recognize that the industry's compensation models do need an overhaul, especially with streaming platforms continuing to change traditional business models, Zegler's stance was seen as an overly literal or naive approach to the notion of securing residuals. Her mentions of having to wear the Snow White costume for up to 16 or 18 hours a day also drew pointed criticism.
And now she's trying to reinvent herself because there's been so much blowback, and you can only imagine the studio calls about this woman behind the scene. Like, oh my God, we're $242 million in, and our lead actress hates our film, our actors, our storyline.
Experienced actors and behind-the-scenes professionals stepped forward, pointing out that such long hours, while undeniably exhausting, are not uncommon for major productions, especially for roles demanding elaborate costumes or intricate hair and makeup designs.
That audiences walk away from this film with an understanding of the true meaning of fairness, of what it means to be fair in this world. There is a message that's been carried on for almost 90 years now from the original animated classic. That is, fairness is what is within. Fairness is to do with your heart, the way you treat the people around you, and it has nothing to do with what you look like, and that's the misunderstanding between Snow White and the Evil Queen. I think it's such an important message, and the way that Disney has elevated it and brought it to this new audience is very special.
Rather than garnering sympathy, her complaints came across to certain audiences as indicative of someone who might not fully appreciate or understand the industry's demands, even if she had already participated in significant Hollywood projects. To make matters worse, Zegler's immediate attitude in defending the film was interpreted by some as denigrating past adaptations of the Snow White legend. Longtime devotees of the 1937 Disney classic objected to her praising the new version as the best and bravest iteration of the character, seeing it as a direct slight to a film that formed a cornerstone of Disney's heritage. Some also perceived her remarks as dismissing other retellings, such as the Brothers Grimm's original folktale, the reimagining starring Kristen Stewart, or the comedic take known as Mirror Mirror featuring Lily Collins.
Her West Side Story debut was not a hit, and that was a Spielberg movie, so that was kind of a surprise. But if you're a studio, if you're a director, if you're a casting director, you've got to think twice or three times before hiring her. Listen, she's talented, she's attractive, she's got skill, but there are a lot of actresses in Hollywood who bring all that to the table and are not going to absolutely sabotage your work.
The resulting impression was that Zegler maintained a kind of tunnel vision regarding her own performance, which further fueled the acrimony already surrounding the film. As these controversies broadened, rumors spread that other studios beyond Disney were rethinking their interest in signing her for upcoming projects. Blumhouse Productions allegedly dropped her from a new horror trilogy.
Behind the scenes, you guys know as well as I do that those executives like Spielberg are looking at that saying, Rachel Zegler can F right off.
And speculation arose that Warner Brothers had cut her from a political thriller in which she had been set to play a key supporting role. Online chatter soon cast her as effectively fired from Hollywood, although the reality is likely more nuanced. Hollywood deals collapse for any number of reasons, including shifting budgets and creative changes. But when such collapses happen in rapid succession, the effect can tarnish the actor's reputation, giving rise to the perception that she is too divisive a figure for studios to risk employing. Commentators, especially those active on social media and YouTube, began placing Zegler in a broader context. They noted that other high-profile celebrities, from Robert De Niro to Alec Baldwin to George Clooney, had courted some measure of controversy through outspoken political stances or abrasive remarks.
So just how bad? The movie debuted in the United States at number 1 with $43 million. Decent, but not a blockbuster. And far below projections. Internationally, a similar story. Overseas, Snow White took in $44.3 million in its opening weekend, bringing the total to just $87.3 million. With a budget of around $209 million. That means Snow White is destined to be one of the biggest bombs in Disney history. It will not recoup.
Julia Roberts and Meghan Markle were similarly cited as examples of prominent figures who had polarizing effects on their audiences. The question was whether Rachel Zegler, given her relative youth and shorter filmography, could withstand the same degree of pushback without long-term damage to her career trajectory. Meanwhile, Disney struggled to salvage Snow White through damage control. Bob Iger, known for his typically shrewd brand management, found himself stuck. While the company has survived plenty of rough patches in the past, the immediate wave of negative reactions to Snow White felt especially pointed, as if it were the culmination of pent-up frustrations about numerous Disney decisions. The studio's public statements insisted the movie would gain momentum and that it possessed a deeper quality than critics acknowledged. But box office numbers and social media sentiment seem to suggest otherwise. Rachel Zegler herself tried to champion the movie on social media, calling it the #1 movie in the world. Many viewers online questioned those claims, pointing to verifiable ticket sales data that told a different story. On top of that, the film's marketing campaign became a subject of derision. TV spots that tried to highlight comedic moments or show the dwarfs in playful scenarios felt at odds with the negativity swirling around the production. One particularly awkward advertisement had Dopey proclaim that people were rushing to the theaters, while the dwarfs comically inched along.
I remember back in 2023 when this was going on and all the little people making videos saying, well, wait, there's so few roles for us in Hollywood, we're being passed over for this? You could have cast 7 little
Peter
people.
Dinklage.
Exactly. They're like, Peter Dinklage, you're rich. We're not. We're trying to be extras, or, we're in Johnny Knoxville's Jackass if we're lucky. And so for them, they're like, you're not going to cast us.
Internet commentators labeled these attempts as cringeworthy and disconnected from reality, suggesting Disney might have been desperately trying to entice audiences in ways that simply did not work. Longtime Disney fans found the whole saga unsettling. Disney is known for its carefully curated, family-centric image and for a knack at presenting its cinematic offerings in a polished, consumer-friendly manner. Yet in this instance, the brand appeared vulnerable, even floundering. Snow White had become symbolic of larger issues confronting the company. Questions about whether Disney was more focused on social messaging than on storytelling, concerns about out-of-touch actors, and fears that beloved material was being taken in directions that contradicted what people loved about it in the first place. Despite it all, Rachel Zegler remained defiant. She continued to praise her work in the film, and instead of moderating the backlash, sometimes inflamed it. Fans who had grown up with the original Snow White, or who had admired other live-action takes, felt that their fond memories were being dismissed. By dismissing earlier incarnations of the tale, Zegler inadvertently alienated those who had hoped that the live-action version would pay homage to earlier adaptations, rather than replace or belittle them. One of the recurring lessons emerging from this story is how swiftly Hollywood fortunes can turn.
But you're going to hire little people to play the dwarfs? That just seems like a step backwards. And then, of course, Disney instantly buckled and said, okay, we're going to add magical creatures. And then the picture of the magical creatures leaked online and everyone just had an absolute blast laughing at it. So the magical creatures are here in the movie. The CGI dwarfs are here in the movie. It works to a degree, but it's certainly going to be a financial hit for Disney, that's for sure.
An actor can go from being an admired breakout star to a scapegoat for a large-scale production's collapse. In the case of Snow White, Disney had presumably banked on Zegler's appeal, her youth, her talent, her social media following, to resonate with a new generation of audiences. Yet, the confluence of negative reviews and her own public posture led to her being painted as a cautionary tale of how easy it is to be cast aside if the production underperforms. There's also the question of how the Snow White affair reflects broader transformations in the entertainment industry. Streaming has muddled the financial landscape, leading to contentious debates over how to pay actors, writers, and other creators fairly. Fan communities are more vocal than ever, wielding social media campaigns that can sway public perception almost instantly. Studios, in turn, grapple with blending classic stories into new cultural contexts without losing the inherent essence that made them popular. When they fail to strike the right balance, audiences respond passionately, sometimes with widespread boycotts or scathing online commentary. Critics who saw the film described it as simultaneously overpolished and sloppy, as though the creative team had tried to modernize the story but ended up with a muddled product. They pointed out that the tension between wanting to remain faithful to certain nostalgic elements while also pushing new themes created an inconsistent tone. Some moments stuck rigidly to the Disney formula, while others felt like half-baked attempts at social commentary that didn't coalesce into a coherent narrative. Rather than achieving the best of both worlds, Snow White managed to satisfy neither purists nor those longing for a bold reimagining. From a purely business standpoint, the hope for any major Disney release is that strong ticket sales will drive merchandise, theme park tie-ins, potential sequels, and future expansions of the brand. Yet a stumbling start at the box office and tepid word of mouth can break that cycle, leaving executives worried about how to recoup production and marketing costs. The question quickly becomes how to mitigate the financial and reputational damage. While some fans might give a flawed film a second chance through streaming, many are guided by the initial wave of opinions. If that wave is predominantly negative, it becomes hard to turn the tide. Rachel Zegler's social media presence likely exacerbated the situation. The modern star is expected to maintain direct communication with fans, an aspect older Hollywood icons did not have to manage. The ability to speak unfiltered on Twitter or Instagram can be a double-edged sword. Fans appreciate authenticity, but it also increases the risk of off-the-cuff remarks that can fuel controversies and put the performer at odds with an even larger pool of viewers. If an actor is already perceived as dismissive or belittling, additional commentary might just entrench that image rather than correct it. Compounding these effects are the numerous voices in the online commentary sphere, YouTube personalities, entertainment bloggers, and casual observers, eagerly dissecting every new piece of information. Once a negative narrative takes root, each subsequent quote or rumor can reinforce it, sometimes overshadowing any positive qualities the film may have had. In Snow White's case, the conversation pivoted from genuine anticipation to widespread frustration. The focus shifted from the film's content to the ways in which Disney and its lead actress handled the criticism. As for Disney, the company faces a dilemma. Forging ahead with reimagined classics is part of its brand strategy, but repeated underperformances in that sphere could spell trouble. They've done well with some previous live-action adaptations, but others have performed below expectations or stirred controversies of their own. After Snow White's reception, Disney may have to reconsider how aggressive it wants to be in reworking treasured narratives. The negative attention around this project could serve as a warning that audiences do not blindly accept every modern revision, especially if they detect a cynicism or a lack of sincere passion behind it. While Bob Iger has navigated choppy waters before, he oversaw Disney's acquisitions of Pixar, Marvel, and Lucasfilm, guiding them to extraordinary financial success. This era poses new hurdles. Streaming competition is fierce, inflation concerns affect consumer spending, and social media can amplify backlash with unprecedented speed. Even a venerable brand like Disney can find itself on shaky footing when cultural controversies erupt around its projects, and Snow White became a prime example. Rachel Zegler's future within this landscape remains uncertain. She had previously garnered buzz for her role in West Side Story, demonstrating vocal talent and screen presence. However, the swift sequence of firings, such as her alleged removal from Blumhouse's horror trilogy and other rumored projects, threatens to overshadow her accomplishments. Hollywood has been known to give second chances to actors who manage to reinvent themselves or deliver a standout performance in a subsequent film. Whether Zegler has the opportunity to do so depends on how thoroughly she can rebuild relationships with studios and rectify her public image. Her unwavering stance on certain issues could also hamper or help her, depending on how the cultural climate shifts. If audiences come to view her as a bold voice for fair compensation and diverse storytelling, she might find a strong fan base in some quarters. If, however, she continues to appear antagonistic or uninformed about her own industry, she risks becoming a kind of symbol of entitlement, a label that's difficult to shake once established. All of these threads, Disney's reputation, Bob Iger's strategy, the evolution of streaming revenue models, Rachel Zegler's career, and the question of how to modernize a classic have converged in the Snow White fiasco, ensuring it won't be forgotten quickly. It stands as a cautionary tale about the perils of meddling too drastically with a beloved story, or of dismissing the passion of a fan base that can be either a film's greatest ally or its fiercest adversary. The saga also underscores the importance of balancing free expression with diplomacy, especially when the stakes involve hundreds of millions of dollars and the carefully cultivated image of one of the world's most recognizable entertainment brands. In the meantime, many viewers have retreated to older versions of the story, revisiting the 1937 film or exploring more faithful live-action alternatives, rather than embracing this new iteration. The entire situation has left Disney reevaluating not just its approach to Snow White, but possibly to other in-development adaptations. While the studio attempts to find its footing, fans are left wondering whether the lessons gleaned from this experience will inform future projects or if, in the pursuit of short-term commercial gains, Disney will continue to push reboots that fail to resonate with the very audience that made these tales classics in the first place. Should Rachel Zegler make a successful comeback, it could serve as a testament to Hollywood's capacity for reinvention and forgiveness. Alternatively, if her star continues to diminish, her experience may be cited alongside those of other actors whose careers took a drastic turn after one too many incendiary headlines. In either case, her trajectory and Disney's current growing pains will be closely watched by observers eager to see how the entertainment industry adapts to this era of real-time fan feedback, social media scrutiny, and ever-evolving financial dynamics. For now, Snow White stands as an instructive episode in Disney's long history, a misfire that triggered discussions about the boundaries of creative freedom, respect for source material, working conditions, payment structures, and the complicated interplay between corporations and individual performers. Even if the story eventually becomes another footnote in the company's massive catalog, it will likely remain a potent reminder of what can happen when audience trust and loyalty are taken for granted. And in that sense, whether one found any redeeming qualities in the final film or not, the lessons learned from this chapter could shape not only how Disney proceeds with future live-action experiments, but also how actors like Rachel Zegler approach the delicate balancing act of modern movie stardom.